Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to basically the first installment of my, like I said, this new endeavor that I have called Food for the Mind. I am very proud to announce my first guest is Anthony Resta, and I'm going to, obviously show you the interview after this. The reason I'm making this video is because we had a couple of technical issues when I called Anthony. Nothing really bad. It was just some of the questions I'm asking, you can't really hear me. So I've edited it in a way so you can hear. It's just because we had to use FaceTime. We had technical problems with Skype that day. But you can definitely hear Anthony talk and all of his answers and all that. So, Anthony is by far the most talented person I have ever worked with. I'm lucky to say that I got to be my former band. I got to work with Anthony on like 16 tracks. I'm just so blessed that is the case. I learned a ton from him as a drummer because he's such a monster drummer. And he's so talented and so gifted at what he does and the way and you'll see it in the interview. He's so enthusiastic because he loves it so much. And so again, Anthony, if you don't know who Anthony is, like I said before, you really should. He's worked with Elton John, Megadeth, all of the Collective Soul music, Sean Mullins, Nuno Betancourt. He's in LA now. He's blown up, Grammy nominated, him and his engineer, Cariotti. They're monsters. So I learned so much just on the interview, but I just love talking to Anthony. Everybody calls him Ajax. And so enjoy the interview. I'm going to do it in two parts because people's attention span with this kind of stuff is short. So I'm going to put it in two parts. Part one is now. So here's, without further ado, here's my interview with Anthony Resta. That's amazing.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's
yeah.
Ajax getting coffee.
I'm going to do my best not to say like.
Oh, you're fine, man. Just be you. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
So thanks
all right.
for calling me, man. I really appreciate it. We're recording now, so we're
okay, cool.
So you're the first person I wanted to interview. This was not a no-brainer.
Well, I'm honored.
So what I'd love to hear from you is, back in the day, I remember a lot of things that we talked about, but I would love to hear how you started. I don't think I've looked at interviews of you, and I've never heard you explain that. How did you get started in this crazy business?
Okay. Just finishing a piece of chocolate.
Oh,
chocolate and espresso is the new booze for me.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so when I was about, 15, 16, I played in bands. I was in a really cool progressive rock band. We did like Kansas, Tull, Genesis, and they were older kids. I was in high school, and they had all graduated, and they were really good musicians. And they kicked the crap out of me, and it was an amazing experience. And we went in to record in a studio in Maynard, Massachusetts, called Northern Recording, Maynard, Mass. And it was over top of a Woolworth. Like, it was on the upstairs of a Woolworth, downtown Maynard. I think it was there for many years. It's a pretty famous studio. A lot of bands in the recorded there. John Butcher Axis, Charlie Farron, Balloon. Andy Pratt recorded Avengin' Annie there, which was a kind of a regional hit.
Yeah, I know.
And it worked. Yeah, it was cool. So I worked with an engineer there named Steve Langstaff, and he had a recording course. This is before every Tom, Dick, and Harry had a recording course, and the ones on YouTube just crack me up. The graphs and it's like it's so wrong. It's unbelievable. We'll go into that later, but so anyway, so he would they would hire me to come in and play drums to a click for their clients, and then they would record stuff over it later. And I only did it 2 or 3 times, and then I would come back 2 weeks later to listen to the mix, and I'd notice everything was going faster than the drums. And people would say, wow, the drums are kind of draggy.
Oh my God. So you're playing to a click, so you're on the beat or whatever. And people...
Well, as good as I could be back then, who knows? But the point being, like, I recognized that everything was going faster than the drums. It wasn't that the drums were draggy. So my lifelong goal was to slow down guitar players.
Dude, that's I told me that story. At 03, I asked you that question, and it's exactly what you told me. So that's cool.
Is it?
Yeah.
I stay consistent with my
answers.
Answers.
And I didn't plan on your story changing or anything. I just thought,
the
same way you did. You nailed it exact.
And then I've been banging on guitars for probably 20 years, you know, and it's like it's my main instrument now. That's where I get all my crazy sounds, and I use my guitar as an oscillator, basically. Or
That's
it's
cool.
like it's an expression of all my sound. I'd say about 75% of what I do now is through crazy guitar configurations.
I always want to know who your influences are in drums, because you're an amazing drummer. Who's your
Oh, thank you, man. Well, growing up, I mean, I loved John Bonham. Was like, you know, the best feel, the best sound. I mean, you know, just he was like untoppable. But I loved Bill Bruford.
oh,
Like I used to study, you know, Close to the Edge really well. I was really into Yes and Alan White, like on some of those records, like Relayer. You know,
yeah.
incredible. I met him at a NAMM show once, and I told him. That drum solo at the beginning of Sound Chaser is like the most insane drumming I've ever heard you do. And he looked at me and said, I could never top that. And he said, I've never played it that good live.
No
It's
shit.
like he got it. He was like, you know, like, yeah, you're right. You know,
You nailed it that day.
yeah, check it out. It's the first like maybe minute or two of Sound Chaser on the Relayer album. It's
Yeah,
mind boggling.
I'll put it
But
out.
anyway, yeah, him and then Phil Collins in Brand X. I was really into Brand X, his fusion group, and that was some crazy stuff. Steve Gadd, like
Oh,
the way he played on pop songs, like Ricky Lee Jones, Chucky's in Love.
didn't you work with
Uh,
here? I saw that. Didn't you? Didn't you?
with who?
Steve Gadd wasn't he? Didn't you work with him or something?
I didn't work with Steve Gadd. No, I didn't. I have friends that have worked with him and stuff. He's
Oh,
just, I mean, his
incredible.
feel and the way he constructed parts, like his iconic drum parts for songs like 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, you know, it's just iconic, you know. So he was one of the biggest, and Steely Dan I was really big into early on.
That's
So
cool.
all the drummers of Steely Dan, you know, Bernard Purdy, who were some of the other guys? Right off the top of my head, I can't remember. But yeah, all that stuff.
I saw.
Jeff Porcaro, of course.
Oh, yeah. How can you not love? What I didn't realize is he played on the Lido Shuffle recently. Someone told me he played on that. I didn't know that. But you can.
Oh, Steve Gadd?
No, Porcaro, Jeff Porcaro.
Oh, Porcaro. Yeah, he's on so much stuff.
Dude, that feel on that song is crazy.
I know. Yeah, he's unbelievable.
It's a lot.
Unbelievable.
3 or 4 years, I've tried to stray away from just playing straight rock stuff. So I spent a long time on just Rosanna for like a.
Oh yeah, sure. Everybody like that. Fool in the Rain. Pretty much same concept.
Yeah.
You know, and Bernard Purdy's got some good ones like that too, like Danger on the Rocks.
Yes, I know.
On yeah, I think that's Bernard Purdy. Incredible.
Yeah, incredible. Well, that's cool, man. I didn't know that, and so
Yeah.
I saw an interview with you when you did it, like a NAMM interview. Like I don't know when it was.
Oh yeah. That was really an incredible honor because that's a historical archive. And like the day I was there, like Lars Ulrich walked out like before me,
Oh shit!
and I was like, I mean, I was just completely blown away to be included in that in their thing. I mean, that was like that was a huge honor.
How you worked with Duran Duran? Can you tell that little of that? That was amazing. How you got that gig?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I had a long interview with them, and they focused on the Duran stuff because they only had X amount of time.
Right.
So, I mean, I wished I had been a little less winded and got into smaller amounts of more things.
Cool.
Because I loved Duran was an amazing experience, and it opened up a lot of doors for me, for sure. But it's like it's kind of funny. I get pigeonholed into that a lot. You know, the Duran thing, like that's my thing. You know, but it was a credible honor, and I had a blast. You know, Bob St. John and I did that together.
What I liked the story that you told was that they liked you for your crazy sound explosions and your mixes.
Yeah, weird stuff.
That relationship spawned from that.
It did, and you know, I had spent like 3 or 4 days working on a version of the song that sounded just like Duran Duran, and Bob and I were getting ready to send the mix via ISDN. Back then, that's how you did it.
Oh yeah.
And I got all of a sudden I panicked. I had a panic attack. I said they don't want this. This sounds like them. They want my weird performance art. They had heard my solo stuff, which was me screaming at the top of my lungs, you know, no commercial potential.
That's
You know, that's demos from Saturn or demos of Saturn. That's like on Spotify still. People still listen to it, and that's where I learned to mess with audio. And back then, I had a studio in my parents' house, so I could literally spend 2 weeks on a mix.
That's crazy.
you know. And I had like this old stereo gear from the 70s, like DBX stuff, and I
Yeah.
had no idea what I was doing, but I was just making really big sounding bottom end, and like, and I would go into cars and different stereos and like literally like revise a mix for like 2 or 3 weeks straight, one mix. So that's the stuff they heard, and they, Warren got back to me and he said, "Dude, this sounds better than our record that we're doing at the record plant." He's like, "We want to give you a shot at one song. Don't get your hopes up. We oftentimes don't use stuff, but we're going to give you a shot at one song." And so that's how it all happened.
That
And then so the next time I sent the stuff, I had me blowing into, no, it wasn't me, I found like sampled somebody blowing into conch shells, like all these weird like woo, and
what?
I had a cowboy lady going woo, like through most of the song. I mean, it was like it was way out there.
And that was your addition. Like in your interview, I'll paraphrase, but
Yeah.
in the interview you said something like you had a mix, and someone was like, "Yeah, it sounds great," and he's like, "No, they don't want this. They want the weird shit that I create."
That's what I did, and that's what we did. We sampled Simon's voice. Actually, this was the second song that we did. This, I think, it was like a kind of a hit, White Lines, that was like by Grandmaster Flash, their version of it. We sampled Simon's voice on different keys on my Akai sampler, rang dang dang dang. So I was like playing his rhythm in there. This was before Pro Tools. So everything we did, we had to like delay time code to make things groove the way we wanted. Everything was primitive, So we would spend weeks like on a mix, just like moving things around, making the vocal a little more laid back, adding different textures and things. And they fell in love with what we did, and so we ended up working on nearly 30 songs with them over the next several years.
That's amazing.
So that opened up a lot of doors for me. It was a great opportunity.
My introduction to you was through Collective Soul.
Oh, cool! Yeah,
Right?
I love those guys.
Dosage, right? The Collective Soul.
Yeah. That was the first record that I worked with them on, and it was really an incredible experience. I drove from Boston. I was working on a record at Longview Farm for Susie DeMarchi, actually, from Australia. She was in Baby Animals, and Nuno and I were working on that record with Carl Napa. And Bob had just done a mix for Collective Soul, and it turned out that Ed Roland was a huge fan of Nuno's solo album, Schizophonic.
Oh, really?
Which had come out like maybe a year before.
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, it's Anthony Resta guy that co-wrote those songs and did all those loops and everything. I'd love to meet him." And Bob says, "Oh, we're old buddies. We work together." So he set up a phone meeting, and so they sent me a track, and it was "You're the One" from the Dosage album. And basically back then I was working on ADATs at my own station. I had 4 ADATs, so they sent me like an ADAT and time code. And in my spare time late at night after my session with Susie, I would just mess around with some, different sounds and textures. And I sent it back to him, and he called me and he said, "Man, this is so great." He said, "But honestly, I can't find one." Like beat one.
Find the one.
He's like, "Can you do it again where like it's just a little more like obvious?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." So I just messed with the. I don't even remember what I did, but to this day I have trouble finding one myself. So I hear it so many different ways.
Oh, you do.
And I love when you think it's one and it's not, and then and then you're fooled. And it's just been one of my trademarks over the years. And some people don't care for it. But anyway, so I toned it down a bit, and he loved it. And he said, "I want you down here to work on the record with us." No. So I finished up with Susie, rented a van. Through Atlantic Records, I rented a van from someplace like in Lowell, and I drove down there with all my gear in the van, and I ended up having that van like for 7 months or something.
No way.
So I went down there. I stayed, and I became part of the family. We worked at Criteria, which is a legendary studio where they did Layla and a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's like it was Criteria, and I just became part of the whole thing. And I had my own like big closet with all my stuff set up in, like kind of like a little ISO booth off the side of the control room. And they would give me time code, and I would mess around with my ADATs, recording a bunch of different stuff. And then we'd bring it into the track, and Ed would be like, "Nah, I hate that. Oh, that's cool." And it was sort of like that. And that's how the whole record came to be. And like that record is their first excursion into sort of loops and weird
My favorite.
synthesizers and like kind of like Pink Floyd stuff. Like the song Crown, for instance, is my absolute favorite that I've worked on with them. And it sounds like Pink Floyd. It's like they just let me do my thing, and it was amazing.
I mean, I remember we talked about this years ago. You probably don't remember this, but this is
Yeah.
the song "Heavy" that's on that record. There are no cracks,
Yeah.
not one.
Oh yeah, that's funny. That's a long-standing weird thing because like Ed didn't want crashes on that song, and I remember seeing Ryan Hoyle play with them at Great Woods, and he was hitting lots of cymbals, and then like later backstage he goes, "Do you like heavy with cymbals? It's better, right?" And I'm going, I'm not going to get in the middle of it. No, I love Ed's um, adventure spirit, and he's got an adventure like spirit with music. He likes to try things.
Yeah,
he's just very he likes and that's the reason why they let me do my thing is like they really really nice of them to give me some space. And over the years we've had a lot of different projects. I worked on almost every record except for the one with the rabbit on it, and then now the new one I don't know if I'm going to be involved with or not, just because just everybody's schedules are crazy and everybody's living in different places. But I got to work on a few songs on the "See What You Started by Continuing." I don't know if you know that one. That's a good one. Check that out.
yeah,
It was a couple of years ago. It was the #1 rock album.
yeah. No, I don't have it, but I definitely heard a lot of it.
And it kind of goes back to their roots. There's a song called I can't think of it right now because I got too many songs.
Having technical difficulties.
Check that one out. Yeah. So yeah, Ed and I go way back. We got together about Ray, and we drank about a friggin' vat of like really expensive bourbon. I'm since dry, but I don't drink anymore. But it was a crazy, weird night of hugging and crying and stuff. And then we just, kind of went our separate ways for a while. But we always end up getting back together.
Cool. I know you always
All good.
of him. I'm always curious about that relationship because they were a huge band in the '90s. I mean, they were.
Yeah, I mean, and their new record, I heard 4 new songs yesterday. They've got I think their next album is going to be a double album. Who does that anymore?
Nope.
Yeah, and it was amazing. I was like, it was really back to their roots. I think people are going to love it.
Cool.